You're watching Football Daily, and today we're looking at 10 of football's greatest managers and the worst mistakes they ever made. 10. Sir Alex Ferguson. All powerful at Man United, during Ferguson's reign no one questioned the Scot, but that iron rule let him make a horrible mistake in 2001. Big Dutch centre-back Jaap Stam had been at the side for 3 years, winning the title in each season and picking up the Champions League too. But despite the quality of Stam's contribution, Ferguson suspected the defender had lost some pace after an injury layoff. The story goes that Stam's tackling stats had dropped too, and so Ferguson met the player at a service station and begged him to go to Lazio. It later turned out that Stam's anticipation had improved and he was tackling less because he was intercepting more. He went on to great success in Rome and Milan, and Ferguson regrets the sale to this day. 9. Arsene Wenger. Whatever his detractors claim, Arsene Wenger is one of the defining managers of the last 40 years, and the Frenchman built that reputation largely on his transfer dealings, with bargain moves for Patrick Vieira, Robin van Persie, Cesc Fabregas and Sol Campbell among others. However, the problem with Wenger is not who he signs, but who he doesn't, and perhaps the biggest miss of his time at Arsenal was Luis Suarez. In 2013, the Uruguayan was coming off a sensational campaign, with 5 assists and 23 goals in 33 league matches for Liverpool, and Arsenal, correctly believing that there was a £40 million buyout clause in Suarez's contract, offered £40 million and £1. Understandably, Liverpool were a bit pissed off at the cheeky bid and ignored the clause, causing a brief standoff with their star forward. He ended up with 12 assists and 31 goals the next season and joined Barcelona for £65 million. You couldn't just bid 41 million, Arsene? 8. Louis van Gaal. Every manager aspires to coach one of Europe's great clubs, but those clubs come with baggage. Despite having flamed out twice at Barcelona, Louis van Gaal joined Bayern Munich in 2009, calling it his dream club. A league and cup double followed in LVG's first year, but the club lost in the Champions League final, and Van Gaal's arrogance caused a rift with Bayern legend and club president Uli Hoeneß. King Louis called Bayern and its board his, while Hoeneß labelled the manager advice-resistant, leading to a very public power struggle. As is usually the case in Bavaria, Hoeneß won, and a slip to 4th in the league was enough of an excuse to ditch the Dutchman. 2 years later, Bayern won the treble, conquering Europe for the first time in over a decade. Louis went on to further humiliations at Man United. 7. Carlo Ancelotti. Carletto is the rare manager who has achieved outrageous success without making anyone hate him. The 3-time Champions League winner, who also lifted the trophy twice as a player, got his first big job in 1999, joining Juventus from Parma. Taking over from the great Marcello Lippi, Ancelotti adjusted his usual 4-4-2 to put Zidane in the number 10 spot, but he parked a young Thierry Henry out on the left wing, ignoring the Frenchman's request to play through the middle. 6 months later, he sold Henry onto Arsenal, where he became an all-time great. Ancelotti left Juve after just 2 seasons, with his only triumph an Intertoto Cup. But in classic humble style, Carlo admitted his error later, saying, "I did not notice that Henry was not a winger." 6. Antonio Conte. Flying high in the Premier League, Antonio Conte turned Juventus from disgraced former giants into European royalty again, winning the league unbeaten in 2012 and picking up another 2 titles, to go with the 5 he won as a player with the Bianconeri. Conte's time in Turin was not without controversy though. He served a 4-month ban for failing to report match fixing while in charge of Siena, and unexpectedly resigned as manager of Juve in July 2014, the day after pre-season training had started. Journalists reported that Conte was worried the club would sell Pogba or Vidal, saying it may be more difficult to keep winning with Juventus, and you cannot go to eat at a €100 restaurant if you only have €10 in your pocket. Conte's successor Allegri went on to win 2 more championships, and had Conte stuck around, he could have used the Paul Pogba money to rebuild the old lady, ensuring their superpower status for years to come. 5. Rafa Benitez. It's hard to turn down Real Madrid, but that's exactly what Rafa Benitez should have done back in 2015. The Spaniard had spent lackluster periods at Inter Milan and Napoli, while Florentino Perez had just ditched Carlo Ancelotti, the coach who had brought home La Decima just 12 months earlier. Benitez seemed a strange fit for a club which had always valued attacking football, and unsurprisingly, he fell short. If you compare his 18 league matches at Real Madrid with the first 18 of the previous season, his side scored 47 goals to Ancelotti's 59 and conceded 18 to Ancelotti's 15. It's hardly the stuff of dreams. Benitez also masterminded a 4-0 home defeat to Barcelona in his very first Clásico. Impressive given that the same side had beaten Barca 3-1 a year earlier. The final proof of his failure was Zidane's record when the Spanish waiter was eventually sacked. The Frenchman won the Champions League, and while Benitez had taken only 3.5 months to lose his third game with Los Blancos, it took Zidane a year and 11 days. 4. Jurgen Klopp. Klopp achieved great things at Borussia Dortmund, winning the Bundesliga twice and reaching a Champions League final, before the Bayern Munich juggernaut found the gear stick again and steamrolled German football. But Klopp endured a horror year in 2014-15, when Dortmund slipped from 2nd to 7th, spending 10 weeks of the season in the relegation zone and 3 of those rock bottom. He announced mid-season that he would leave when the campaign was done, but he shouldn't have. BVB were mostly undone by bad luck, with injuries robbing them of key men Marco Reus and Ilkay Gundogan. The two German internationals missed a combined 33 league games, and Reus was Dortmund's second highest scorer, with just 12 goals in all competitions. He hit 23 the year before and 23 the year after, while Aubameyang turned into a superstar more than capable of replacing Robert Lewandowski. If Klopp had simply waited out the bad luck, he'd have turned it around, and maybe won another title. 3. Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho is football's best villain, and like any villain, his greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. In this case, arrogance. The Portuguese arrived in England in 2004 with a Champions League trophy and a galactic ego, and with good reason, as he led Chelsea to back-to-back league victories. Nearly 10 years on, Mourinho returned to his old stomping ground with more grey hair, but an even larger trophy cabinet. A couple of genius transfers brought him glory again, with Cesc Fabregas and Diego Costa lighting up Stamford Bridge. But Mourinho was starting to make mistakes too. He shipped out Felipe Luis after 1 year, and the Brazilian reached a second Champions League final with Atletico Madrid. He let Mo Salah leave, and the Egyptian tore up Serie A with Roma. He let Kevin De Bruyne join Wolfsburg, and soon the Belgian headed back to the Prem for a sackload of cash. Not content with those sales, Mourinho also signed Radamel Falcao on loan, after seeing the Colombian detonate at Man United. Falcao scored just once, and Jose was gone by Christmas. 2. Pep Guardiola. How do you humiliate a man as bald as Pep Guardiola? You batter him 4-0 in a Champions League semi-final. That's what happened to the Catalan tactician back in 2014, with even Pep acknowledging the defeat as the worst of his career. After a 1-0 away loss at the Bernabeu, Bayern welcomed Real Madrid to the Allianz Arena with the tie in the balance. In true Pep style, the Germans dominated the territory and had 70% of the ball, but they were ripped apart by a ruthless Madrid counterattack and stumbled out of the Champions League in shock. Pep had allowed his ambition to get the better of him, plumping for a 4-2-4 formation over the 3-4-3 his coaching staff favoured, and he paid the price with the worst day of his career. He called his decision a monumental fuck-up, and he failed to win the Champions League at Bayern. And finally, at number 1, it's treble winner and Barcelona legend Luis Enrique. Barca fans labelled him the best manager in the world when he won the treble back in 2015, but Lucho has since incurred the wrath of the Blaugrana faithful. But it seems that his worst flaw remains not being Pep Guardiola.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, there's another one playing on screen right now. And as ever, don't forget to like and subscribe.